So just to talk about a little bit of trouble that I've been having. I mean, besides the obvious. I keep going back to my old ways of thinking about relationship problems and things I've dealt with and things I'm dealing with now. Always trying to reason it out, discuss it, or just try to make somebody else see my point of view. I get discouraged and I worry. Got a court date coming up on Monday, and it's got me very anxious. Things that have been said about me make me look like an absolute monster. I'm sure there are plenty of people out there who would be like, oh, well, you absolutely are a monster. Whatever. If you want to believe I'm a monster, if it makes you sleep better at night to think I'm a monster, so be it. But I'm having a hard time keeping my mind, well, I guess no better way to say it, set on God. Looking at it like Joseph. You've heard the story of Joseph in the coat of many colors, where his jealous brothers buried him in a hole and then sold him into slavery. And then he became basically head of the slaves. Then, whenever he rejected the advances of the master of the house, he was sent to prison. And I don't remember how long he was there. I don't even remember if it says so. And then from prison, he ends up being counseled to the Pharaoh, which is, the king. Granted, Joseph was a little more on the righteous side. Honestly, the only thing that he really battled with, I think, was pride. Very prideful. I battled with a bit more than that. I wasn't as upright, haven't been as upright as he was, but God does look at the heart. Not just what you've done. Yes, what you've done matters. And whether you answer for those things on this earth or not, you will answer for those things. But people who follow him, God doesn't hold those things against them anymore. They aren't the things that determine your worth to God. Only the world looks at you based on how much of a nuisance you are. I guess that makes sense. There are a lot of people I have cut out of my life in the past that were a problem for me. And a lot of people got cut out of my life that weren't, simply because I was not able to process and think like I was supposed to. And that's a whole other story. I don't feel like recounting that now. Anyway, I may not have been as righteous and upright as Joseph was. But that doesn't mean that God won't use my circumstances or even place me in these circumstances to put me where I'm supposed to be. Because the ultimate truth is, it doesn't really have anything to do with me. I mean, it feels like it does. And in the eyes of other people, it might look that way. I mean, I read my soon-to-be ex-wife's deposition, and like I said, it paints me out to be this monster, Hitler's evil cousin. That might be an exaggeration, but whatever. That's how I feel about it. And I did have there were actions and behaviors that did contribute to this. I never, ever, ever said that I was innocent. Just that I was not the only guilty party. Anyway, I have to remember I'm here for a reason, not just because I was stupid or because somebody else was, whatever word you feel like using. But because I'm supposed to be doing something that either I have yet to see or I missed the first time around. Ultimately, Joseph, without he or his brothers knowing, Joseph was put through all of that craziness in order to save his people. Because the Pharaoh had a dream. 7 skinny cows eating 7 fat cows. And I want to say there was another dream after that along the same lines. He couldn't find anybody to interpret the dream. And of course the Pharaoh was getting a little impatient, and he was a bit worried because he felt like the dream was prophetic, which of course it was. Now, what if Joseph hadn't been in that prison and hadn't told his guard what his dream meant? I believe it was his guard or some sort of servant of the Pharaoh. I can't remember which. Anyway, what if Joseph hadn't been in that prison to interpret that dream for that person? That person wouldn't have been able to turn to the Pharaoh and say, I know somebody who can interpret dreams. What if Joseph had accepted the advances of the wife of the master of the house? Well, he never would have been sent to prison to interpret those dreams. And instead, he probably would have been killed for sleeping with the master's wife. What if he had never been sold into slavery by his brothers? Well, then he never would have ended up in prison, where he could then be led to the Pharaoh to interpret the dream. And all of Egypt and all the Israelites would have died because of the 7-year famine that followed the 7 years of plenty. If it hadn't been for that series of unfortunate events, anybody's ever read the book or watched the movie, it's crazy. It's very pertinent. If Joseph hadn't gone through all of that craziness, then the Israelites and the Egyptians, most if not all of them, would have died of famine, starvation, because that lasted for 7 years. 7 years, no rain, no food. It's crazy stuff. So yeah, I may not have been as upright as Joseph, but that doesn't mean that the principle doesn't still apply. What am I being led to? I have to keep asking myself that question, because I get into a state of depression where, quite frankly, I don't want to talk to anyone. I don't want to be around anyone. I don't want to engage in anything. I just want to disappear. Sorry about that. I don't know why I'm yawning, but I get pretty deep. I had an issue for several years with, I don't know if this is even a word that's allowed on YouTube, I don't know, but attempting suicide. There are people who will try and convince you that I was using it for manipulation, but those people weren't there every single time I tried. There were plenty of times I tried when they weren't. It was my just about only thought every day for years. And it's been 2 months since that thought's crossed my mind. The clarity that I've gained since the separation started is astounding. But yeah, I get anxious and depressed because of my situation. I mean, the chances of me losing everything. I mean, I've already lost everything. I don't live in the same house as my kids. I don't have a wife anymore. And at the risk of this sounding like a disparaging comment and potential violation of these orders that are in the temporary restraining order, I don't want to get into that, but she is trying to take everything. Every object, every dollar and penny, and the kids. And every dollar that I make, or a large portion of the money that I make in the future, trying to get stuff I haven't even obtained yet. Whatever. But that prospect is discouraging. And that's on my mind a lot. I mean, the best I can hope for is being able to start over with my head above water. But if she gets her way, then I won't even get that. And I don't know what to do with that. I have no defense. I mean, everything I say would be hearsay. I mean, or it would sound petty. I mean, what am I supposed to do? How do I defend words with anything? I don't have documentation to prove that what she's saying is wrong. I mean, you can't prove that nothing exists. Mathematicians have been trying for centuries to prove that nothing exists, but they can't, because nothing doesn't exist. That's the definition of nothing. It does not exist. I cannot prove that something did not happen. And regardless of who the burden of proof is supposed to be on, I'm being accused of horrible things. So I have to disprove them. And I can't. Unfortunately, some of it is true. And a lot of it that is true is assuming intent rather than just stating facts. I'm starting to go off on a tangent, going off too far in the wrong direction, but the point of it all is I'm getting anxious, I'm getting worried, and I'm having to fight with depression because I'm looking at all the prospects, and the best case scenario for me is that I will only lose most of what I have, which I already have. Worst case scenario, if the judge even believes half of what's in there, I could end up in prison. A lot of people tell me not to worry about it, and I know that the chances of that happening are very slim. That's not the point. The point is, I'm worrying about it, and it's not something I control. I mean, normal people worry about things anyway, but it is part of my condition. I know a lot of people are like, "Oh, don't blame your condition." Well, I'm sorry, but these are, one of them's an actual personality condition. You have a personality, and you don't fight your personality, or you try to fight your personality, but it's not like you have a choice. All you can do is look at yourself objectively. But, I mean, ADHD alone, that's what we do. We worry. It's not a choice we make. And the harder we fight against it, the worse it gets. Wonderful. It's awesome. That was sarcasm, by the way. But, and all that, the easy thing to forget is that I have no control over it. So why am I worrying? My worry's not gonna change it. Oh, sorry, dang. My worry's not gonna change it. All I can do is pray and wait try to get as much done until then as I possibly can. Whatever that looks like. So, that's where I'm at. I'm sure I'll probably get plenty of nasty comments from people who have nothing better to do, but whatever. I know how to delete messages, block people, and so on and so forth. Something I actually don't like doing. In fact, I don't do it very often. I only do that to people who consistently harass me. I don't have patience for that anymore. Anyway, you have a good night, and hopefully by morning I'll have a better outlook, and hopefully by the time this is done posting I'll have a better outlook. I'm working on it, like I am everything else. My therapist does tell me that I'm doing better, that I'm making strides, but I still worry that I'm not doing well enough. I actually do worry that I am inadvertently manipulating my therapist, and I do tell her that. To the point where it actually makes her mad that I keep saying it. But I can't help it. Anyway, y'all have a good night, and always try to be better. That's what I'm going to try to do.